Friends, Psalm 139 is a wonderful song about how well God knows us and loves us. In the first part, the psalmist sings of how well God knows us. When we sit, when we rise, our thoughts, our feelings, our whole experience, God knows because God is with us. In fact, the psalmist says even if we wanted to try to get away from God, we could not. We'd have to, even if we tried to go as far up as we could or far down as we could, or take the wings of the dawn and ride through the sky to that mountaintop way over there, even there, God would be with us. There's kind of no escape from God's loving presence. What about at night, the psalmist says? Maybe when the sun isn't shining. But the psalmist says, La noche resplandece como el día para ti. Even the night shines like the sun to you. This is a song of celebration of the God that knit us together in our mother's womb like a grandmother, tending each stitch just the way she wanted. Where can I go?
You have searched me and you know me when I rest and rise. You can trace my every journey. You know all my ways. You know all my ways. Where can I go from your presence or hide from your love? Where can I go from your presence or hide from your love? Now before I left my mother, nurtured in her womb, there you knit my life together, full and wonderful, full and wonderful. Where can I go from your presence or hide from your love? Where can I go from your presence or hide from your love? Are in your keeping. Search my heart, oh God. May your Holy Spirit fill me. I will bear your heart. I will bear your heart. Where can I go from your presence or hide from your love? Where can I go from your presence or hide from your love? Where can I go from your presence or hide from your love? Where can I go from your presence or hide from your love?
Good morning, church. Both the one gathered in the sanctuary and those like me who are on screen. This is the second Sunday following the day of Epiphany. The psalm reading for this day is the 139th. I will be reading to you from a translation titled The Lucan Psalter, translated by the Reverend Dr. Dwight Vogel. It begins with the word Adonai, which is a biblical word that we usually just translate as Lord or God, but I'll be using Dr. Wright's translation. Adonai, You've searched me and known me. You know my sitting down and my rising up. You discern my thoughts from afar. You trace my journeys and my resting places, and you are acquainted with all of my ways. Indeed, there is not a word on my lips, but you, O God, know it altogether. You press upon me, behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is so high I cannot attain it. Where can I go then from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I climb up to heaven, you are there. If I make the grave my bed, you are there also. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand will lead me, and your right hand hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will cover me, and the light around me turn to night, darkness is not dark to you. The night is as bright as the day. Darkness and light to you are both alike. You created my inmost being and stitched me together in my mother's womb. For all these mysteries, I thank you. For the wonder of myself, for the wonder of your works. My soul knows it well. My frame was not hidden from you while I was being made in that secret place, knitted together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my body even there. All of my days were written in your book, all of them planned before even the first of them came to be. How precious your thoughts are to me, Adonai. How impossible to number them. I could no more count them than I could count the sand. But suppose I could. You would still be with me. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. In the bleak brown of winter, the songbirds at our backyard feeders are even more beautiful. The other morning, over coffee with our Christmas company from Florida, our daughter Sarah, we watched a female goldfinch crash into the window and fall into the brown dead leaves below. The feeders out that window and the nearby shrubs under that window make for hours of watching goldfinches and other lovely winged creatures. The psalmist sings, "You created my inmost being and stitched me together in my mother's womb. My frame was not hidden from you while I was being made in that secret place. Knitted together in the depths of the earth, your eyes saw my body even there." Is God delighted to watch me or you or any of us with the same breathless gaze that I watch a little bird? When they hop about on the ground and mechanically crane their necks and turn their heads, they betray their awkward dinosaur ancestry. For about the time that it takes a hummingbird to beat its wings, I can have an arrogant moment and think, oh, it's a good thing you can fly, little buddy, because you walk somewhat like Frankenstein on the dance floor. Yeah, okay, you can fly and sing, but, well, I can trot for 5 miles. And when I sing, I can simultaneously play the guitar. And then I remember that this little half ounce, 1/2 ounce of yellow, brown, and black feathers, complete with its own internal organs and eyes and a seed-cracking, tough beak, well, that little half ounce traveled much, much farther in 2020 than I did, without a coat or rain shoes or a hat, except maybe for the jaunty little crest of feathers atop its head. When in personal doubt about humanity in general, or my own uninspired self on a wintry morning, birds return me to my senses. I do not need to decide which of us, human or bird, was knit together with more graceful hands. Even on a bad day, when God, as the psalmist says, searches my innermost thoughts. Even on a bad day, when God's search of me finds a complete gallery of ugliness, the little bird reminds me of the wonder in wondrous. Hers, mine, yours, touched by, knitted together by the maker of mountains and stars. Wondrously made, wondrously made, wondrous. This little golden girl that flew into the window under our watch was now laid out in the winter brown leaves. She was lying on one side, and she blinked and then closed her eyes and laid her head down. Sarah and I both sighed deeply. In just a few moments, the little gold gem opened and shut her eyes a couple more times. Her head was still laying down on brown leaves. Emily Dickinson speaks bird. She is a poet. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. So it was hard to watch those little eyes in the brown leaves open and close. Hope was hanging in the balance. So after a few minutes, I decided to weigh in on the side of hope. I grabbed a faded pink bath towel, went outside, and wrapped the little feathered gem. All 160 pounds of wondrously made 67-year-old human lumbering with clumsy hands toward a half ounce of feathers and hope. It was kind of morbid, but at the time I thought to myself, what if it was I who crashed? What if I was the one stretched out, half alive, next to a wrecked car or a crashed airplane? What if a little goldfinch perched on bent metal right beside me and sang? It was, after all, my window bringing this present grief upon the little bird. The least I could do was wrap her in a towel. It was also the most that I could do. So wondrously made, half ounce of feathers, song, beak, and eyes. After wrapping the bird back inside, Sarah and I continued to watch these little splendid feathers, now completely wrapped in pink bath towel with only 2 blinking eyes and 1 beak peeking out. In a few weeks, we will reach the anniversary of our global crash into the window of a coronavirus. Humankind is stunned. We did not see it coming. We understand a little bit more now about how it spread so quickly. We now have several vaccines to enlist in our struggle with this thing tinier by far even than a goldfinch. The psalmist, who gushes about being wondrously made, then employs a rhetorical map to remind us that no matter where we go, God is there. No matter where you go, they say, no matter where you go, there you are. And the psalmist adds, and God also. Where can I flee from your presence? If I climb up to heaven, you are there. If I make the grave my bed, you're there also. If I migrated as far as the goldfinch 'neath my window, or to the other side of the moon, or to the furthest away point in the ocean, or if I am laid low in the dust from which all mortal flesh is created, the dust to which we all one day return, even there you, O divine one, you are there also. Even if I am terrified to meet you, O divine Maker, you are there with a welcome mat, cup of tea, and holy hug. So I get a little lost thinking about space and travel to the ends of the earth, but in the midst of that rhetorical map is the psalmist's confidence that even there, your hand will lead me and your right hand hold me fast. Have you ever felt a protective pink towel wrapped around you? Following a moment when you were stunned by the crash of something, a car, maybe the crash of "Are you sitting down?" news. The pink towels came out strong ever since COVID-19 got a name. Now, just for a moment, don't worry about how your own hands, amazing as they are, don't worry about how they have reached out. Recall instead the pink towels placed around you by other hands. Look at the hands that have sustained you since the COVID crash. Was the right hand of God someone's actual hands? Maybe the right hand of God took the form of a nurse's hands, or the hands of a doctor, an ambulance driver, or the hands of a teacher or a student mousing around over a video school lesson. Maybe the right hand of God out there in the furthest stretches of where you have never been before was as invisible as the encouraging words of a stranger delivered at precisely the moment you needed them. God is holding you. God is right there, holding you. maybe the right hand of God flew near you in the shape of yellow feathers. Sarah and I watched that pink towel for a time, just in case one of the neighborhood cats chanced by. And then I sort of went on with some other daily COVID has us stuck at home routine. And then a little later I went back to the kitchen window. Pink towel was still on the ground, undisturbed. Hadn't moved in the least. Little beak and blinking eyes were gone. They had left nothing but a small, now empty space in that towel wrapping. It was my towel. It was my clumsy hands wrapping this feathered hope. There was no magic there. It was little more than a bird regaining its senses to fly again. I picked up the towel and brought it in and showed it to Sarah. I said, it's not exactly the Shroud of Turin, but we were both just delighted that our little golden feathered friend had taken flight. No miracle, but it made me look. Made me see the presence of the holy. God's right hand made the empty tomb. No matter where you go, regardless of what crashes in, God is holding you. God is right there, holding you. Amen. God bless.
At this time, I'd like to introduce Tanya Walker. She's a member of our church and an ordained pastor, and she's going to share a personal story with us. Tanya.
For many people, the year 2020 was among the worst in their lives. For me, though, the worst year of my life was 2016. It started out promising. I had a job I loved in hospice, and my husband, Mark, was in his second semester of going back to school to get a degree in paralegal studies. But then in February, a chronic illness I live with flared up, and in March, I lost my job. Mark had to drop out of the semester and go to work, as my unemployment alone would not be enough to pay all the bills. After a couple months, I found another job, but by then Mark became sick. At first, we thought it was just ordinary blood clots in his lungs. But then he got worse, and by June, it was clear that we were dealing with something far more serious. The doctors recommended he go out of state for surgery, pending more tests. My new workplace decided that they could not hold my job when I went out of state with my husband, and I lost a second job in less than 4 months. As the summer progressed and more tests were done, the unthinkable happened. What we thought were blood clots in the pulmonary arteries of Mark's lungs were actually cancer. This is such a rare cancer, especially for it to be the original spot of the cancer, that in the research I did, I could only find 20 cases. By late August, with Mark in the hospital on oxygen and getting weaker, we finally got the clearance to go to San Diego for surgery to remove as much of the tumor as possible. However, at 7:30 the morning of August 27th, the day before we were supposed to take a medical flight to San Diego, I got a call that Mark had coded. He was pronounced dead before I could get to the hospital. So here I was on unemployment, at best finding only on-call work and substitute teaching and other such things to supplement it, and I had lost the man who I deeply loved and considered to be my soulmate. To say that at the time I was angry at God is an understatement. Why were all these terrible things happening? And where was God in the midst of it all? I don't have a good answer as to why these things happened, other than that we live in a fallen world where illness continually rears its ugly head. As the minister who presided over Mark's memorial service in Norman said so eloquently, God is not the enemy, cancer is. But as I look back over that dark time in my life, I can see the hand of God holding me up over and over. While it took over a year after losing the first job to find full-time, permanent employment in my field, I was able to find work, from serving as an on-call chaplain to using my long-dormant journalism training to write some freelance articles, to driving for Uber. Family, our church in Norman, and friends gave us money to keep us going and to pay for me to go to San Diego, money that ended up going to the funeral home. Many friends also donated to a GoFundMe campaign to help with the bills. A social worker at the American Cancer Society wrote to each of the medical establishments that were involved in Mark's testing and hospital stays and convinced all but one to write off the bills. But most importantly, friends came out of the woodwork to support me in my grief. One friend and I bonded over our mutual losses as her husband died suddenly 4 days after Mark died, and we cried on each other's shoulders and supported each other through the various anniversary dates that came up that first year. Another friend called me every evening for the first year after Mark died. Yet another friend flew in all the way from Oregon to attend Mark's service and to support me. My children, who themselves had lost a stepfather, also checked on me and hung out with me when I'm sure there were times they would have rather been with their friends or significant others. God has continued to hold me up through good times and setbacks in the ensuing years. God helped me find a great job here in Ponca City, a church home, and friends here that were there for me, bringing me supplies when I was down with COVID in December, and a wonderful cat companion, Griffin. In the last 3 months, I have embarked on a promising new relationship, showing me that it is possible to find love again after such a devastating loss. At the beginning of 2016, if you would have told me I would be living in Ponca City, doing a dream job that I thought I could only find in the big city, and loving someone new, I would have told you that you were crazy. But here I am, thanks to God's guiding and upholding hand. I know that good times don't last forever, just as bad times don't last forever. But I have learned that God is holding me through both the good times and the bad times. I can easily thank God for all the good times in my life, but I can also thank God for the rough times because I have learned to have faith in God and God's sustaining presence. Even when I can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, God's love is still there, and God's plan for me is sure. It may not be what I think it should be, but in the end, it's a beautiful plan.
God is holding your life. God is holding your life. God is holding your life. We believe. God is holding your life. Yes, God is holding your life. Oh, God is holding your life.